When NASCAR announced that the Busch Clash would not be at Daytona, but instead would be held at the LA Coliseum in California, reactions were, well, let's just call them mixed. I wanted the battle at the beach to make a comeback, but others were taken aback, calling it a gimmick race and that we needed to return to our roots instead. But the Clash is literally an invitational preseason gimmick race. It always has been. And racing inside a stadium is a return to our roots. We've been doing it since the 1950s. Soldier Field in Chicago, home of the Bears, held a race in 1956. Buffalo Civic Stadium, former home to the Bills, held a race in 1958. And even baseball stadiums have hosted races. McCormick Field in Asheville, North Carolina, and the Canadian Exposition Stadium in Toronto, former home of the Blue Jays. And fun fact, that race up in Toronto was Richard Petty's first ever Cup Series start, and 3 of his first 4 starts were held in stadiums. Actually all 4 if you want to count Wall Stadium in New Jersey as a proper stadium, although it was built from the ground up with auto racing in mind and isn't technically a stadium. All that, and I haven't even mentioned Bowman Gray Stadium yet, which has held NASCAR races in all divisions for ages. Yeah, going to the Coliseum was a good call as far as the concept goes. It ended up costing about $1 million to pave a track onto the field and put up walls, which is stupid cheap when it comes to building what amounts to a brand new racetrack. And that's because everything else is already in place. Seats, concessions, amenities, suites, staff, it's all ready to go. But I got to thinking, could there be a better location for this event? Like maybe a big stadium in the middle of NASCAR country back in the southeast. Massive college stadiums dot the entire region, and hell, all over the country for that matter. We could go just about anywhere, like in all 50 states if we wanted to. So let's do this. What would be the best venues for the Clash or the All-Star race in all 50 states? I only have 2 criteria for venues. 1, the stadium in question has to be built for something other than auto racing, and it has to have at least 20,000 seats already. Whatever you got right now is going to have to hold up come race day. If a state doesn't have a stadium already built with that baseline capacity, then it gets skipped. Sorry for all my viewers in Alaska, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and South Dakota. Better luck next time. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and start in alphabetical order with the great state of Alabama, home of Talladega Superspeedway. Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, home of the Crimson Tide, is practically begging for this slot. But like most college football fans, I absolutely hate the University of Alabama, so I'm picking Legion Stadium in Birmingham instead. My choice is mostly out of spite, but it is literally in the middle of Birmingham, Alabama's largest city, and has a capacity of 70,000. Not too shabby. It's hosted college bowl games, USFL and XFL games, and could honestly use a new tenant to bring in some extra cash. With UAB now playing at the 43,000-seat Protective Stadium, the Iron Bowl's future is uncertain, but NASCAR could save it in a last-ditch Hail Mary. For Arizona, I wanted State Farm Stadium where the Cardinals play, but with their rollout turf system, I don't think we could pave a track on that, so that's a no-go. But their previous home, Sun Devil Stadium in nearby Tempe, Arizona, is actually bigger, holding a maximum capacity of 73,000 people on game day. With the right scheduling taking into account weather, it could work. If you're getting tired of seeing Phoenix Raceway 2 times a year, but still like the market, this could be a winner. For the first race held in the state of Arkansas since 1957, there's really only one option: Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville, Arkansas. With 72,000 seats, this could be one hell of a sight for a Saturday night slugfest when the Razorbacks are out of town or out of season. The joint was newly renovated in 2017, so it's in a lot better shape than most college stadiums these days. California already has the Coliseum date in the book, so let's skip ahead and go to Colorado. The Colorado University Stadium in Boulder was tempting, but for this state, nothing quite compares to the magic of Mile High in Denver. With capacity topping out at 76,000, this venue is right in the middle of a major city. And the name of the stadium isn't just a saying. The stadium sits literally a mile above sea level. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of effect that has on horsepower output for the cars. And to think that's not even the highest elevation stadium on this list, not by a long shot. For Connecticut, I was tempted to do the Yale Bowl, as it holds 40,000 people, but that place is old as dirt. The amenities are non-existent, and they have these concrete stairwell things that protrude onto the actual field. So Pratt & Whitney Stadium at Rensselaer Field is my pick. Home of the Yukon Huskies football program, this place seats 38,000 if you cram them in shoulder to shoulder. And being so close to Hartford, Boston, and New York City, we might actually have to do that. For the first state, the University of Delaware offers us the accurately titled Delaware Stadium, which holds 22,000 people. The stadium is newly renovated, but with its tiny Jumbotron and Denver Down Speedway being a mainstay of NASCAR competition, I just don't see this one happening. To choose a venue for the Sunshine State, let's go to our resident Florida man, EmpLemon, and get his 2 cents.
So my buddy Slapshoes asked me which stadium here in the great state of Florida I think should host a NASCAR race. And I may be a little biased here, but I think it would be very cool to see the NASCAR drivers come down right here to Ben L. Griffin Stadium in Gainesville, Florida. So the stadium is located on the University of Florida campus, home of my Florida Gators. and it has a capacity of about 90,000 people, making it the largest football stadium in Florida. Florida, of course, is a pretty great state for racing, obviously being home to Daytona International Speedway, the world center of racing, as well as Homestead Miami Speedway. Now, the event would be pretty noisy, so it would probably be best not to schedule it during midterms, because that could definitely get on some of the students' nerves. You also have to be mindful of the climate here, because during the summer months it rains pretty much every single day during the day. So you'd either have to make it a dirt race or schedule it some other time of the year. But other than that, I think it would be very cool to see NASCAR come down to the swamp.
For the state of Georgia, let's get Jake Baskinger on the call and see what he's picked out.
Okay, if there's anybody that was right to talk about the stadium, it would be me, figuring I spent so much time in this stadium throughout my life, and I know this place from back to forth. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is a place that is phenomenal. It's a work of architecture, and nobody ever expected that this place would actually become as big as it is. But you know what? Who doesn't want to race here? This is a perfect place. It has a retractable roof, so nobody's going to die. It has the space because it is a soccer field within a football stadium, so it can fit a large track inside of it. And plus, who doesn't want to see like their large amenities? Food is cheap. Everything around it is cheap. You're in the middle of the city, so you'll be able to have a lot of people come in. And not to mention, you're racing inside Megatron's butthole. So yeah, if there's ever a stadium that you need to race in, you could race at Truist Park, but that's not in the middle of the city and it's hard to get to. So I would say Mercedes-Benz Stadiums because of transportation, you have everything in the middle of the city, and it's a perfect place to have a race.
A race in Hawaii would be a bit of a logistical nightmare, but at least they speak English there. In the 90s, NASCAR teams ran exhibition races all the way out in Japan. So a quick hop over to Honolulu to race at Aloha Stadium would be a piece of cake by comparison. Hosting the University of Hawaii home games as well as the Pro Bowl, Aloha Stadium holds 50,000 people, and the pleasant tropical weather would be a nice change of pace compared to freezing your butt off back in the mainland during February or November. For Idaho, I wanted the Kibbe Dome in Moscow, Idaho, but with only 16,000 seats, it missed the mark. So we go with the Smurf Turf, Bronco Stadium in Boise. This joint can hold 37,000 Boise State faithful in its confines, and if we did do this, not only would it be the first race in the state of Idaho, but we'd have to leave the blue turf in the middle of the field undisturbed. Honestly, if we can't have the Smurf Turf in the infield, then it's really not worth it now, is it? Illinois really only has one venue worth noting, and yes, NASCAR makes its triumphant return to Soldier Field in Chicago for the first race there in almost 70 years. The place has changed a lot over the years. Some would argue it's not even the same place, only the name is the same, but whatever the case may be, this 61,000 seat stadium is the pride and joy of Illinois. For Indiana, I really wanted Lucas Oil Stadium. That's just a cool looking venue, I don't care who you are, but Indianapolis is already saturated with racetracks. So let's head up north and go to South Bend, Indiana. Yeah, South Bend is actually in northern Indiana for some reason, but let's go up there and hit up Notre Dame Stadium. Home of the Fighting Irish, this joint can seat over 77,000 fans and is located relatively close to Indy, Chicago, and Grand Rapids, Michigan, giving us a nice Tri-City area to work with. Up next is the Hawkeye State of Iowa. With the Iowa Speedway being on some shaky ground, this choice is going to matter going forward. And Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City is there to carry the torch. Home of the University of Iowa Hawkeyes, this arena holds 69,000 nice fans at peak capacity on game day, and it would be the first NASCAR Cup race in Iowa since the 1953 race in nearby Davenport. For Kansas, we're going to the University of Kansas. Home of the University of Kansas Jayhawks, David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium is smack dab in between Topeka and Kansas City, giving us a big pool of fans to draw from to fill the 47,000 seats on race day. Hopefully we'll finally give Jayhawk fans something to cheer about, and Kansas City can stop getting all the love. My pick for the Bluegrass State lands us not in Lexington with the University of Kentucky, but in Louisville, home of the Cardinals. The cleverly titled Cardinal Stadium can fit about 65,000 fans in the stands, since they just added a whole bunch of new seats towards one of the end zones. Kentucky Speedway might be gone, but hopefully Cardinal Stadium can play host to at least one last race in the state. I was tempted to go to Baton Rouge and pick the LSU Stadium for the Battle in the Bayou, but the Superdome is just a classic. Hosting more Super Bowls than any other stadium, the Superdome is a mainstay of American culture at this point. I mean, it's basically right up there with the Statue of Liberty and Mount Rushmore. When it comes to races that absolutely have to happen, this is at the top of the list for me. We can't race anywhere in our nation's capital, but Maryland offers a nice substitute close by in North Englewood. With a whopping capacity of 82,000, FedEx Field can run right up there with the biggest and best stadiums in the country, if only Dan Snyder could keep the place up and not have it fall apart on us. For all my mass holes out there, we're going to Beantown and invading Fenway Park. which will be a home game of sorts for RFK Racing. And if this idea were to actually get legs, don't be too surprised if the RFK guys are right there leading the charge. They get a lot of their financial backing from the Red Sox, and having an all-star race here would be a dream come true for them. With just shy of 38,000 seats, this is not the biggest venue in the state, but it's definitely the most historic. And honestly, who doesn't want to watch some poor hapless driver smash into the green monster at triple-digit speeds? For the great state of Michigan, let's flip it over to Ed Soundhead and get his pick.
You just knew the biggest stadium in America was going to pop up on this list at some point, so here it is. The Big House in Ann Arbor, home of the Michigan Wolverines, seats over 107,000 people at a time, and has a record attendance of 115,000. Having first opened its doors in 1927, it's also one of the oldest venues on this list, and honestly, if we're dead set on stadium racing, this is a can't-miss opportunity right here. Jim Harbaugh might not be able to bring home the natty, but maybe one day NASCAR can bring home the gold to Ann Arbor.
For the Great White North of Minnesota, here's the Iceberg to deliver his choice.
For Minnesota, you have to go with US Bank Stadium, which is affectionately called The Bank. Home of the Minnesota Vikings, this stadium is in the Twin Cities area in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Seating about 70,000, it's kind of comparable to what other stadiums are in the NFL, as well as NASCAR tracks when it comes to attendance. The thing I really like about this stadium being used for a NASCAR race is that it's in an area that has actually a lot of NASCAR fans, but is very dry when it comes to the amount of NASCAR content or racing content in general that's in the area. Plus, I think it would be really badass to see before the start of a race a skull chant, or have it before each restart. It'd be something that would be a really nice touch that NASCAR has never seen before in a race. And also, it could fit NASCAR culture in a more morbid way, as like the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the bank's glass exterior kills copious amounts of birds every year.
It seems all sorts of wrong when you say it out loud, but did you know that the NASCAR Cup Series has never held a race in the state of Mississippi? Yeah, we've been racing around Alabama for decades, but we never made that jump over the state line. So let's go ahead and change all that and pack our bags for Starksville, Mississippi, where we will race at Wade Davis Stadium, home of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Yeah, Old Missis Stadium is a little bit bigger, but Wade Davis packs in 61,000 people at a time. It's almost perfectly equal distance between Jacksonville, Memphis, and Birmingham, giving us a big pool of race fans to show up and fill those tens of thousands of seats. The Show Me State of Missouri has a lot of tempting options. Arrowhead Stadium is really good. But how about giving the nod to one of our title sponsors? Busch Stadium, home of the St. Louis Cardinals, is just a really cool looking place. Plus, utilizing a baseball diamond means that we can have a really weird track with lots of places for drivers to dive bomb each other. With a capacity of 45,000, this should be more than enough to hold Missouri's NASCAR faithful. In Missoula, Montana, there's really not much of anything except the University of Montana and their 25,000 seat Grizzly Stadium. For NASCAR's first foray into Big Sky country, this is really the only option, and it's not a bad one at all. The views are absolutely to die for, and travelers will have plenty of sightseeing to do before and after the race. Oh, Nebraska, land of corn and not much else. So let's go to the home of the Cornhuskers over in Lincoln. Memorial Stadium boasts a massive seating capacity of 87,000, making it the 14th largest stadium in the country. Not bad for a city with a population of less than 300,000. And to be honest, I'm surprised there's even that many people in all of Nebraska for that matter. For Nevada, we gotta go to Vegas. Yeah, Reno's cool, but the Death Star calls to me like a siren in the desert. Allegiant Stadium is right across I-15 from the Mandalay Bay and 1 block removed from the Strip. Plus, it's right there next to the airport. You can basically walk to your casino of choice, get liquored up, blow all your money, and watch a race without ever having to rent a car. How's that for convenience? For New Jersey, let's hand things over to Trace Ryder.
Thanks, Lap. As a Jersey native, I'll never pass up the chance to grandstand about my homeland, considering we get no respect. So here we go. The obvious choice here is MetLife. Huge stadium, seats 82,500 people, and you could even make the argument that the 25,000-seat Red Bull Arena across the parking lot is a usable venue as well. But let's talk about something. These stadiums are in North Jersey. Due to its proximity to New York City, it's crowded with all those living a big city dream but can't afford to do so in the city proper. Hell, it's even home to 2 teams who pretend they're New Yorkers, and it's almost guaranteed that they build this as something related to New York for the market share. But I have a solution. An airport race. I'm suggesting we head to the heart of the state and shut down a runway and tarmac at good old McGuire Air Force Base. We do a slap and dash, flat concrete beat 'em up full of all the high-octane entertainment we know and love. I used to go to air shows here and spend a portion of my childhood in base housing. There's plenty of room for parking and haulers. We put up some temporary bleachers, run a race on the runways, and everyone goes home. If we're going to start doing experimental things with the All-Star race, is an airbase really that far out of left field?
New Mexico is a barren wasteland with one shining diamond in the rough, Albuquerque. And even though it's the 32nd biggest city in the US, it doesn't have a single major league team in any sport to call the place home. Well, let's change all that. The creatively named University Stadium, located at the University of New Mexico, holds 40,000 people. The Lobos haven't won double-digit games since 1982 and have not won more than 3 games in a season in 5 years, so let's give them something to cheer about, shall we? For New York, there's only one place to go, and that's the Bronx, baby, because it's not all about the Mets, it's about the Yankees. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that now. New Yankee Stadium holds 54,000 people, and actually being in the city limits of NYC, that means we have beaten IndyCar and F1 to the punch by getting a race in New York City before them. This race is worth it just to thumb our noses at them for the rest of time alone. The Tar Heel State has a lot of great places to settle down, and a lot of real tracks that we could go to. But if we're dead set on the stadium thing, let's not go to Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. Instead, let's go to Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh, home of the Wolfpack. With 58,000 seats, it's not too shabby, and Raleigh has deep ties to NASCAR history. There was, of course, the failed Raleigh Speedway, but the one that caught my eye was the last dirt race in NASCAR held in 1970 until Bristol held its dirt race. The site of that Raleigh dirt race was at the North Carolina State Fairgrounds, just 700 yards away from the stadium. South Dakota, you missed out, but North Dakota barely squeaks in with the 25,000-seat Fargo Dome in, well, Fargo. Home of the proud North Dakota State University Bison's football program, their dome means that we can race any time of year in any weather, and based on what I've seen, it'd be really nice to not have to worry about that. For Ohio, let's hand the reins over to the Ben Crazy.
I'm the Ben Crazy, and in the great state of Ohio, the best stadium to host a NASCAR event is First Energy Stadium in Cleveland. Sitting right next to Lake Erie in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the home of the Cleveland Browns has a seating capacity of 67,000 and is located within 100 miles of Detroit, Toledo, Pittsburgh, and Akron, the home of Goodyear tires. But I can hear it right now, why not Ohio Stadium, the largest stadium in Ohio and the 3rd largest on-campus football stadium in the US? Well, despite being located in the largest city in the state, filling its 110,000 seats will just not be feasible for a NASCAR event. And its location farther from the big cities compared to First Energy would also add to the low attendance. Why go to such a large stadium when the stands look half empty? Plus, having a successful NASCAR event in First Energy Stadium can show the city of Cleveland that it can be a great host for racing fans and a great way to bring people to the city. I mean, who knows? The city owns an airport. Didn't we used to host races there before? Maybe instead of hosting another racing event in the stadium, we take them to the airport and bring along their friend Roger Penske. Doesn't that sound grand?
I got some family that hails from Oklahoma, so I'd better get this one right. Oklahoma University in Norman is my pick, and Oklahoma Memorial Stadium holds 80,000 rabid Sooners at a time. I'm more of a Cowpokes fan personally, so I kind of wanted Stillwater. The Oklahoma State people just seem to really take care of their own down there.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! I'm not a kid!
But with 20,000 more seats than Boone Pickens Stadium, I decided on the Sooners instead. Just be careful with the schooner out there on the track, please. Alright, quack quack, Mother Hubbards, we're going to the home of the Ducks for Oregon. Autzen Stadium in Eugene holds 54,000 people at a time, and it's about time the Northwest finally got some attention from NASCAR. Greg Biffle and Casey Kane hail from that area, and it's a shame that we never got to race there before they retired. Just one thing, remember to bring rain tires with us. We're probably going to need them, and there's no domes out there for some reason. For Pennsylvania, let's talk to a real Yinzer and Urinating Tree and see what his pick is.
There's only one place to put a race in the Keystone State. Happy Valley. Beaver Stadium and State College. Over 100,000 screaming fans in an acoustically intimidating setting. It can even do what Penn State does for night games and call for a whiteout in the stands. Gotta play up that college camaraderie, you know? And have you seen their tailgate scene? It's bonkers. You're only a couple of hours away from Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and there is no compare for such an event. NASCAR can even do a corny catchphrase for their race. We are NASCAR! I'll stop right now.
Rhode Island just barely sneaks onto this list with Brown University's football stadium. The aptly titled Brown Stadium comes in right over the line, holding exactly 20,000 people. That's if you pack them in like sardines, but hey, that's the official number, so I'm rolling with it. The place was built in 1925, but the outside of it looks practically ancient. Are we absolutely positive the Romans didn't accidentally build another Coliseum in North America? And finally, we get to my home state of South Carolina, and I'm picking Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, home of the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. Memorial Stadium in Clemson holds more people at 81,000, but the 80,000 at Williams-Brice is close enough. Plus, I hate the Clemson Tigers, and their school is out in the middle of nowhere. There's not even an interstate that goes to it. Not to mention, Columbia has hosted a lot of NASCAR races over at Columbia Speedway in the past, and this would be a great way to return to the state's capital. For the volunteer state, Danny B. Talks has volunteered his services for this video, so let's go see what he picked.
In the state of Tennessee, while the Tennessee Titans may seem more likely to bring a national football title back to the volunteer state, I would not suggest to race at the newer, more polished Nissan Stadium in Nashville. We are already working too hard to bring back NASCAR to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, while already having the Nashville Super Speedway back anyways. And also, I can't say the other OEMs inside NASCAR would appreciate racing in Nissan Stadium. So if we were going to host a stadium NASCAR race in Tennessee, then there's really only one clear option, and that's Knoxville, Tennessee's Neyland Stadium. There's just so much more prestige and honor inside that stadium. It's recently been undergoing renovations and will have more within the coming years. So why not race inside the home of the orange and white Tennessee Volunteers? After all, they once won a football game held at Bristol Motor Speedway.
The Lone Star State of Texas is up next, and there's really only one place that we could pick. We're going to Jerry World. Home of the Dallas Cowboys, AT&T Stadium is a domed venue that can cram 80,000 people into its confines, and it's practically built like an amusement park. Kyle Field over in College Station holds more people, sure, but this pick is personal. When Jerry World was first created, it boasted the largest TV screens ever built up to that point. And Big Hoss, the big screen built on the backstretch of the Texas Motor Speedway, was built specifically to take the title away from the Cowboys. With this pick, we get to spit in their eye one last time, and honestly, who doesn't love to hate on the Cowboys? Salt Lake City doesn't get enough love if you ask me, and the University of Utah Utes have a spectacular venue for us in Rice-Eccles Stadium, which seats 54,000 people. Yeah, the Mormons up in Provo at BYU have a bigger stadium by about 10,000 seats, but who the hell wants to go to Provo? Nah, Salt Lake City hosted the Olympics one time. That means we gotta make the Cup Series first trip out to the Beehive State, Salt Lake City. Wait a second, Beehive State? Who the hell picked that? I've been to Utah, there's no bees there. I'll be honest with you, I thought FedEx Field was in Virginia at first, so I had to reevaluate my pick for the free state of Virginia. But I think I've found it. Scott Field in Charlottesville, home of the University of Virginia Cavaliers. The Virginia Tech Stadium is a little bigger, but the 61,500 seats at UVA should suffice. And that's just the permanent seating. Check this out, that grassy hill overlooking the end zone, that would make for a great student section during a race, and a place where a lot of very poor decisions could be made. Please, please do not streak across the racetrack. It doesn't work out, trust me. For Washington State, NASCAR is loud, so we gotta pick the loudest stadium in the world. Lumen Field, right smack dab in the middle of Seattle's downtown, is home of the Seahawks, and its fans are so loud that they once registered a minor earthquake. Who knew 72,000 people could be that loud? To be honest, I can't think of a better place to try to break the Richter scale than right here. Did you know that West Virginia has hosted a NASCAR race before? Yeah, West Virginia International Raceway in Huntington has hosted 4 Cup races from 1963 to 1971. While that racetrack has actually been resurrected from the dead and made a comeback and still hosts races today, if we were to go for a stadium race there, Morgantown has the only venue I can think of. Mountaineer Field can hold 60,000 people at a time, making it far and away the biggest stadium in the state. And being just south of Pittsburgh, we actually stand a chance of filling those 60,000 seats. For the dairy state of Wisconsin, let's hear from CodyHGaming.
Thanks, Slap. My pick for Wisconsin is none other than Lambeau Field. So you might be asking yourself, how might the frozen tundra make for a successful NASCAR race? Well, it might be the frozen tundra in the winter months, but in the summer months it has very mild temperatures as opposed to the south during that time where it's notoriously hot and humid. Also, it having the 3rd highest seating capacity of any permanent NFL stadium, along with the strong short track routes that run deep in the Midwest, you have a recipe for a potentially very successful race if NASCAR ever decides to come to Lambeau Field.
And last but certainly not least is Wyoming. And surprisingly, the least populous state in the Union gives us a decent venue to work with. In Laramie sits War Memorial Stadium at Jonah Field, seating 35,000 fans at a time. With Cheyenne being a 50-minute drive away and Denver 2 hours out, we could actually get those seats filled and have a nice showing for the first race ever in the Cowboy State. And not only would it be the first race in the state, but it would also be the highest elevation race in NASCAR history. War Memorial Stadium sits at 7,220 feet above sea level. Well, that's the list of the biggest and best venues in each state that could host a NASCAR race. Some are completely impractical, while others are just begging for a race date someday. And with the Clash now being up in the air and potentially a rotating race, who knows what the future will look like. Anyway, I'm Slapshoes, thanks for watching, and until next time, y'all take it easy.